Hello everyone, Ram here. Today I'm going to talk about the discussion topic number one, Sanchez and Downing article. So this article talks about why people makes decisions so quickly and jump into the conclusion without trying to understand the entire circumstances and without trying to understand a person and their behavior, right? And we may have seen this oftentimes in our workplace, in our home, and in our friend circle, right? And it's very common. And this article have a great example about the bees and the fishing uh, uh, research, where the jumpers usually like to make a conclusion really fast, and they don't want to get enough samples to make their decisions, and most of the time it turns out that they make a wrong decision, whereas on the other side there are people of the different nature who like to take their time, try to understand the process, try to collect more data, and they try to make a very well informed decisions, and they are the one who are correct most of the time. And there's a bit distinction between those two natures of people, right? The system one, very fast, intuitive, and automatic, whereas the system two, slow, deliberate, and analytical. And there is no right and wrong, right? Sometimes the system one, who performs really fast, intuitive, might work better in some circumstances. For example, in my job, in day-to-day basis, we have to fix some things on the field, which needs very intuitive and very fast-paced action. So the system one might work better, and sometimes where there's a major project, we have to think a lot, try to work with the cross-functional team and be more analytical, right? And try to process enough more data, that way we can make a very well informed decisions, and that's been a very good process to handle a big project and major issues. So I think though there are both kinds of system one and system two out there, and it depends on the circumstances. And there, on the discussion number one, there's a second article called Badgerman and more. This article also talk about why humans are not perfectly rational, and we oftentimes we make mistakes because we try uh, to take a shortcut, which is also known as heuristic, right? And it also talk about system one being very fast, automatic, emotional, and intuitive, whereas system two, slow, deliberate, and analytical, right? So there were six uh, heuristic judgment and biases that uh, was discussed in this article. The first one is availability heuristic, which talk about we make judgment based off the examples and most recent incident we may have encountered. The second one is representative heuristic. So this one talks about how we make judgment based on the stereotypes. For example, right, if we see someone less talkative, so we may think he's a liberal, right? And these kind of thoughts are very common, and we may also think that way in our day-to-day basis, right? There's other one called confirmation bias, where we always try to seek about some other ways to confirm our belief and to confirm our thoughts. So that's very common in a human nature, right? We always try to find more supportive documents or supportive evidences that support your thoughts and belief. Uh, so I have seen that oftentimes in my workplace. That's very common while we were talking with our engineers, right? There's one more called anchoring bias, which talks about how we rely heavily on the information that we found on our first instinct and never go through the whole data, or no, never go through the whole story of that incident, right? And this sometimes may lead to a wrong decision making, and also the overconfidence bias. So I think all these biases and heuristics does a explanation does a great job about how we fail in our day-to-day basis on making the critical decision in our job, home, and in our day-to-day activities, right? So the author also suggested six different kind uh, of strategies that help us to deal with that. The first one is using decision uh, analysis tools like the cost benefit analysis. Second one is trying to get more exposure and more experience so that you learn from them and it helps you to make a well-informed decisions. And there's a suggestion to be more deliberate, trying to slow down our process and think from other people perspective. That might help you to uh, make a better decisions. And uh, also uh, read articles and